Hi, I'm Talicza.
And I'm Rachel, and this is Transatlantic Crime, a true crime podcast that covers stories from each side of the pond. Every week, we will both cover a separate story with a running theme.
Disclaimer, this podcast will contain swearing and details that some people may find offensive. If you are of a sensitive disposition, listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Transatlantic Crime.
Crime. So close.
Profesh.
We haven't done this in a while like this.
Jesus, what a start. So,
Hi.
you've been cheating on me with another podcast. What have you been up to?
Well, hi Talicza, welcome back to England.
No, let's get down to business immediately.
Jeez.
No, yeah, hi, yeah.
Whoa. Hi. No, I was a guest on another podcast called Carry Your Way to Success, which has nothing to do with true crime or anything. It's just about my friend Crystal, who owns a couple of businesses. She is starting a podcast where she talks about how it's okay and it's important to be a good person when you are a business owner and when you are obviously I'm not a business owner, but like in the professional world,
Yeah.
I think is what the podcast is about. I was just a guest, so she has 2 episodes a month and she has a different guest every time, and I was just one of her guests, and I talk about filmmaking and I talk about our podcast and I talk
Aw.
about working in the industry as like a woman, which
And
is,
the film
you know,
industry
it's a
is
male dominated.
it's cunty. It's just horrible. Like when I worked in music, it was like cutthroat. Yeah, I get what she's saying. Like it's okay to be
exactly.
nice.
And right now, I think her main point, and which I agree with, is that it's important right now to
Mm.
be nice.
Well,
It's,
everything else is so
you know,
shit. Like you don't need extra
yeah,
piled on.
exactly. It's just, and all the higher up people they all look the same and they all kind of act the same. So it's just important for new people to come in and change it up. So
Yeah.
that's what we talked about.
Awesome. When's that coming out?
It'll come out sometime in June, towards the end of June. Have a listen to that podcast when you can. And I also produce it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Carry Your Way to Success. But I think we should talk a little bit about the last couple of weeks because
Oh my God.
you were here. We skipped to last week's episode because it was my birthday and you and I went to Joshua
Yep.
Tree. It seems so long
I
ago
know.
now that you're back in England.
I know. It's like I also like haven't done that much activity, as in walking around and just doing stuff. I just haven't done anything for so long. I feel like I was like at my limit of physical activity, and obviously it was all in the sun, and I'm like one step away from being like an albino, so I was just so pale and like dying. Back in very cloudy, slightly chilly England, like loving the atmos, but it feels like a dream because it was so surreal.
It
like
does.
being in the middle of a desert. Like I felt like I was in a postcard or a film.
Yeah.
Looking around and seeing huge like cactuses and mountains, and Joshua Tree is like an old west town.
It is.
It's all like
yeah.
oldie worldy, so it feels like I was in Deadwood, and then there was a goat for a mayor, and then there was a cactus for a mayor, and I was just like, what? It just felt like really surreal.
Pappy and Harriet's, which is a really cool bar with a tiny stage that really famous people have played on.
Yeah, like Paul McCartney and Peaches, and yeah, it was fucking incredible. And like when people go, oh, where have you been? And I say California, everybody's like, wow, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, it really was. Yeah, and I didn't even go to Disneyland, and it was still amazing.
Yeah, someday we'll go to Disneyland.
Again, though, we did one hike, and that wiped me out. I don't know why I thought I could do Disneyland as well.
Yeah, it's funny too, because didn't I asked you if you wanted to like walk around Joshua Tree National Park, which is, it's not really hikey, it's like more of like paths, and you were like, we can. And then you're like, and then when I told you about the antique shops and stuff like that, you were like, let's do that instead. I was like, great, let's do
Imagine that
that.
you're going out with your nan. Like, you wouldn't take your nan out into the boiling desert for a hike. You would take her to the antique shop because it's just safer for everybody all round. Like, that's how you
You're
need to
not
think
my
of it.
nan, Talicza.
I fucking feel like it. Yeah, and then when we were at Joshua Tree, we basically just like cooked a nice dinner, had a few drinks, sat in the hot tub, and went to our
Yep.
separate bedrooms.
Like
An old couple. There's no need to get silly and kick the arse out of it. Just have a nice time.
No. Yeah, and the other thing too was it was my 35th birthday, so when a friend asked me like, "Oh, how does 35 feel?" And I was like, "Well, I went to bed early. I sat in the hot tub. I had a couple of drinks. That was my birthday. My neck hurt."
Yeah, the pillows in the Airbnb well, it was the bed really, I think was the problem, wasn't it? It was like a memory foam mattress.
Yeah.
So I led on it and I was like a little bit wavy from like the drinks and hot tub. And then I was like, what the fuck is up with this bed? And then I just started to sink. It just like sinks you into a hole. Like it's like you're a Barbie in a plastic case. I was like, I can't move. And so I just didn't move all night. And so my neck was unbelievably stiff.
Yeah, mine too.
That is
so
some old people
this is
shit.
35. Yeah.
I was going to go to Disneyland, but then I went to San Diego Zoo because I gave you a couple of days break by going to San Diego, and I thought like nobody needs a full 2 weeks of me. Like let's just let her off. So I went to San Diego Zoo, and I thought it would be quiet because it was a weekday. No, fucking shitloads of kids. Shitloads of school trips. I accidentally got caught up in like, you know, when you're walking and then you're all of a sudden you're in the middle of a group and then like a teacher was going, right, everybody get their buddy. And I was like, I'm not with these kids. Like, I found that a bit intense. And I thought, if you find the zoo intense for kids, Disneyland, what are you thinking? Like, it's going to be wall to wall.
Oh my gosh.
Tired, hot
Yes.
kids that want stuff from the gift shop. Like, you want to surround yourself with that, do you? And I was like, no, I've got to take a pass, hard pass.
Standing in an hour-long line with a bunch of kids. That's what Disneyland is.
I know. I'd love to go around Disneyland by myself. That's my dream, but it's just not going to happen because I'm not Beyonce. So
You're not a Kardashian, Talicza.
I'm not.
Not yet.
And I don't have any
anyway.
kids either, so it'd be a little bit weird. They'd be like, oh, why? Have you got like, is there a famous person with a load of kids? Nope, just on her own. She's 33.
One of my friends recently won, like, you know how radios do contests and stuff.
Yeah.
They won tickets to Disneyland, 4 tickets to Disneyland when it closed, and they were able to walk around.
That is such a good prize. Again, my dream.
Yeah,
that's ideal
exactly.
because the only thing that ruins stuff is like other people being there. I think sometimes that you haven't particularly chosen. Okay, so before we crack into the stories, I've got 2 things to tell you.
Okay.
Like, one, jet lag has been kicking my ass. So if I seem a bit grumpy, that is why. 2.
Okay.
Actually, it's 3 things. 2, I'm going to put. So I need to find a way, but I'm going to put all the holiday photos on the Patreon. So if anybody wants to leaf through the holiday photos, like there's 100 of them, so I'm going to put them on there. Yes, if you want to see all the holiday photos, they're all going to be on there. I didn't want to spam the Instagram. And number 3, Carly told me a story, and I was like, it was a Vice article, so you know that it's going to be weird. But I was like, that's got to be a lie. And she was like, nope, I've got photos and everything. Right, so apparently in a Wetherspoons, which is like a chain pub in England, like there's loads of them everywhere.
Yeah.
Somebody went to the toilet, like a bloke, and then he came back out to the guy at the bar and went, mate, I've just seen an eyeball in the urinal. And the guy was like,
Stop.
yeah, the guy was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, no, I say an eyeball, I mean like an eye with an eyebrow like moving. Like, you went, what the fuck do you mean? He went, look, come up with me. And basically, he said somebody was looking through the hole in the urinal that the wee goes down and saying that they were looking at him, like, and he was like pissing on them. And the guy was like, he didn't seem drunk, the guy that said it. Like, so he was like, what? So
Which Weatherspoons was this? Where
oh,
was it in
they
England?
They didn't say. I swear to God,
Oh man,
I'll post I'll post the article, so you can read it if you want. I'll also like send it to you. So they've got an access to the back of the urinals, like just in case the plumbing goes or whatever, and that's just like the room with the mop and bucket in. Go in there.
Right.
Somebody has set up a cushion, like a toilet roll cushion, and they've got their head in the gap. Like, they're not there anymore, they've gone. But there, you can see somebody was led there with their face under the urinal so that whenever anyone went for a piss, they pissed on their face.
What?
I know. So yeah, and like I don't know, I couldn't even finish the article because I was like laughing, but I don't know if they caught them. But yeah, somebody had their face, and I was like, Carly, that can't be true. And she Googled it and found like photos of the setup that the person had, and it was in the papers. Like, it was true.
I'm shaking my head right
disgusting.
now. I don't even know what to say.
I was like, it's kind of like a victimless crime, but it's not, because if somebody was like looking up women's skirts and they didn't know, like, that's,
Yeah,
you feel violated.
it's similar.
Yeah,
Right.
It's similar to upskirting.
But that's also gross. It's like, why?
Some people like to get peed on, but like randomly by 50 people in a night, any piss will do.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'll send you the article. It is crazy.
Post it on the Instagram if you can. I'm sure people would love to hear about that.
Oh,
read about
God.
it.
British journalism, Rachel, best in the world. Vice, exactly what you've come to expect.
Vice mainly.
Yeah, that I just had to tell you that before anything else is important.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Talicza.
You're welcome.
I kind of like those. Like, maybe we should start doing that as a thing. Like, just like weird,
the most mental thing you've ever heard.
Stories.
You don't even think it's real. It's just so mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that could be a new feature.
Just okay. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, let's get into this week's episode, which we decided to ease ourselves back into it.
Yeah.
And just have a little true crime chat. And since Talicza was just here in LA, Talicza, what was your favorite part of being in LA?
Oh, can I?
Other than being
I'm gonna
with
have
me.
to choose. Obviously, that's why it felt like a dream. I got to do a top 3, I think. So the baseball was an absolute trip because I've never been to a baseball game before, and people were crazy abusive, which was just like, what the fuck? And
but I feel like you say that, but I've been to soccer or football games in the UK and they're way worse.
Yeah, but I expect that from us. I thought you were nicer. Like, that was crazy.
But yeah, also I think we were sitting in a section at the Dodgers game where there were a couple. That's not that normal. Where the Dodgers were playing the Phillies, and there were like Phillies fans with their jerseys on, just like constantly walking in front of us. They were sat right in front of us. It was that was a death wish. Happen a lot.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I've been to so many Dodgers games where it's just Dodgers in that section. Like, there's no one else.
As it should be, by the sounds of things.
So that was right. Yeah, there were a couple of fights. So.
Yeah, that was just mad. And then when we hiked to Griffith Observatory, like, I've never seen Griffith Observatory before, and I'm quite proud of myself for surviving it. So that was another one.
Yeah,
and I don't know, just like being in Joshua Tree in general, it was was just the middle of the desert. Like it said, one of the pamphlets said like Joshua Tree, like where two deserts meet, and I was like, how do you tell the fucking difference? Like it's just sand and meets some sand. Like, and you said there was like a snake in the road, and it was proper grit. It was proper America. Like obviously LA is California, but it's a city, and like I've lived in a city, but I've
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
like been in a desert. It was kind of like the Grand Canyon.
Right.
Like when we went there, it's like my eyes couldn't really compute that it was real
Yeah.
because it was just
And it
something I've
feels
only seen on
different
TV.
too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's kind of the segue into this week's episode, which is like crimes in LA, famous
Yeah.
crimes in LA that we're just gonna chat about. So what have you got first?
So
What did you want to talk about?
Well, I have been listening to, well, first of all, I watched a TV show before I left for LA called Confronting a Serial Killer. And it's got Lauren Gillian in it, and she is bringing out a new book that I really want to buy. Basically, she started like a pen pal relationship with Samuel Little, who was supposed to be the most notorious murderer in America. Like, well, he says he killed 90 people, and I think they've confirmed like 70 or something, which beats Gary Ridgway. It beats Ted Bundy by fucking loads. But I think Gary Ridgway was like the record holder before that, with the Green River killings. And so, was that LA? That wasn't LA. No, but that was just the most. He was the most. Was it not notorious? Prolific is what I'm looking for. Yeah. Right. So Sam Little beat him, and she's speaking to him, and he's drawing, because basically the FBI released a lot of pictures that he had drawn by hand of his victims, and like they are his memory is incredible. Like they look like the victims. Like they're
really?
They're not even like great drawings, but he just remembers like their eye color and their haircut and the jewelry that they had on and stuff, like identifying features.
For some reason, that makes it extra creepy.
It really does.
That he remembers their eye colors. Like I don't remember people's eye colors. Like I don't know what your eye color is, Talicza.
It's green. The rarest.
Oh, same. I have green eyes too. But can you give a little refresher on like who Sam Little is and what he did around LA?
Yeah, so well, he killed people all over America, but he got caught in LA, and he killed the most people in LA, I think. And he is basically an African American guy. He got caught when he was about like 60 or 70. I think it was 70. He's really old by the time he got caught. And he was like a drifter, so he would just drive around, and I think that's part of him not getting caught is how elusive he was. Like the police could never tie him down to just one place. And when he was younger, he went into he was looked after by his grandparents, and his mother didn't look after him, and then he ended up going to a juvenile facility. And in there, he was sexually assaulted, and I think he was raped. And from that point on, like he just completely lost it. And then his mum came back to like claim him basically, and they had a really inappropriate relationship. I think he was also touched by his mum. And then his mum died. And you know how like serial killers have things in their life that are like triggers for their crimes?
Yes.
And like set them off. Like, yeah, one of them was he went into that facility, and then another one was he met his mum and had inappropriate behaviour with her, and then the third one was his mum died. And then after his mum died, that's when he started killing people. And he would mostly kill sex workers. They were usually African American, but then sometimes he did kill a lot of white women as well. He killed like all races, but they were predominantly African American women that he killed. And he was like obsessed with necks. So he would, for some reason, he just got obsessed with necks, and he would say like, oh, she had a really beautiful neck. And he would strangle women to death, like usually in the back of his car. He would negotiate with them for a sex act, and then once he had them in his car, he would strangle them. And like always with his hands
Right.
as well, which isn't the easiest thing. It takes a lot of strength. So
No.
he's pretty like strong and
Yeah.
big, I think. Obviously when they caught him he was
Right.
old, so he didn't really look that menacing, but I think when he
Yeah.
was younger he was quite built. And then he would just dump them like by a dumpster or in some undergrowth, or he never really buried people or made the effort to hide what he'd
Mm.
done. When they caught
Right.
him, he was saying his argument for that was, well, people didn't care because these women were usually like dependent on drugs, or the police basically said they live a high risk lifestyle, so fuck them.
Right.
Was the
Very
Grim
similar to
Sleeper, yeah.
the Grim Sleeper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super similar, but I think he was just traveled a lot more, so he got away with a lot more.
Yeah.
The Grim Sleeper got caught in the end, didn't he? Because his house like started to smell where he'd kept bodies. Was that, are we thinking of the same person?
The Grim Sleeper, that's who I did one of our very early episodes.
Mm.
I did our story on the Grim Sleeper, and he got caught when he tried to kill a woman and she escaped.
Mm.
And she was able to, even though she was shot like in the chest, I think it was,
Jeez.
Anitra, that was her name, which I
Mm-hmm.
get wrong in our episode, which is always seared in my memory
No,
because
is
I
that what
feel
you think of
bad
at
that I got her name
6 a.m.
wrong.
when you can't sleep?
Yes. Yes. But she got away and she remembered what kind of car it was. Obviously, she remembered what he looked like, what he was like, and that was ultimately, they started looking for that specific car
Yeah.
and they found it just like parked outside of his weird colored house.
Yeah.
And then they got like other witnesses who were also very similar, like sex workers, women of color that were just forgotten by the police
Yeah.
or not cared for by the police.
Yeah.
So yeah, a really similar story.
But I think like the most annoying thing about Sam Little is he didn't get away with it like the entire time. He actually got charged with murder, and yeah,
Really?
he actually got charged with murder and he got acquitted because I think one of the witnesses turned up and she was intoxicated. So none of the jury
Mm.
believed her. So basically a story, there's a really good podcast, and it's called 93 Women, and it's on Audible.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the guy who does it is, I think he's Liverpudlian, like he's from Liverpool in England. So his voice is
Yeah.
a little bit hard to understand if you're American, maybe, but he he does a really good documentary as well on it, and then he does a podcast to support that documentary. And he goes to LA and he meets some of the detectives that were on the case, and he's really sweet. Like he basically argues with this old detective because there's a woman and she is raped and strangled, but she survives. Like she runs off and she tells the
Mm.
police, I was walking home from work and I got dragged into a car. And then it
Mm.
kind of, after questioning her, it transpires that she does have a full-time job and she was working late, but at some points in her life she had been a sex worker and she was supporting like a meth habit,
Oh.
but she was managing to do that
Yeah.
and sex work and have a full-time job.
Yeah.
But she didn't want to
Wow.
say, like, I don't know whether she was or if she wasn't like soliciting for work, but she was, what the police officer said was, I believe that that night she was walking the streets trying to get Johns. And so when she says I was dragged into a car, he was like, I don't believe her. I think she was soliciting and that's why she got into the car with him.
Right.
And
Yeah.
she denies that, but they don't believe her because originally they had like a kidnapping charge and an attempted murder charge. And as soon as they found out that she was a
Yeah.
sex worker, it got downgraded to like assault or something. And they were like,
That's such bullshit.
I know, it's so frustrating to listen to. And they were like, you could have just,
Yeah.
you could have said, oh yeah, you can strangle me. And then it got a bit out of hand. And she was like, my eyes are like, like bloodshot. Like I've got bruises on my neck.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get, like, even if I was doing sex work and saying that somebody could strangle me. I'm not like saying you could attempt to murder me. But they just didn't.
Right.
He just didn't
Yeah.
believe her, and he was like, "Well, jury won't believe you. I don't believe you. So sorry, like we're
It's so
downgrading."
angering.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So he got away with it because of things like that. But then the police officer said, "I don't believe that Sam Little would have dragged a woman off the street unless he knew she was a sex worker, because he targeted sex workers for the very reason that he knows they won't be believed." So it's a
Yeah.
real like he said, she said on that one. But and then obviously sex work was illegal as well. Well, is sex work still illegal in
Right.
LA?
Yeah, I believe so. I think in the whole country it's illegal, and the only place that it is legal is
Don't they have the
Nevada,
Bunnyland Ranch in?
where...
Oh yeah, is that where that is? The Bunnyland Ranch, where
Yeah, exactly. That's like the only accepted place where it's legal.
yeah. So in England, it's not illegal to sell sex for money, but it is illegal to
Hmm.
stand on the street and say, "Do you want to buy sex for
Hmm.
money?"
Why? Do you know why
Literally,
that
just because
is?
people don't want sex workers standing on their road. But
Okay.
it's not illegal to like advertise your services on, I don't know, anywhere, and just somebody come to your
Yeah,
house and have sex with you for money. Like that's not illegal.
right. Just seems a little bit more dangerous that way.
I think it's all. I think
I
it's
mean,
all
yeah, it's all
sleeping with
dangerous.
men is dangerous. So
It is,
full
yes.
stop.
And no matter what, no matter
Paying you
what
or not paying you.
situation. Yeah.
Sorry, the one last thing I want to say about Sam Little was in the Confronting a Serial Killer documentary that Lauren Gillian does, she has a drawing of a woman that Sam Little has sent her, and she wants to speak to him about his LA victims in case she can find anybody, a Jane Doe, and then connect it to one of his stories. And he tells
Right.
her that he's dumped a body near a certain bridge, and he's also got a really good memory for like locations and
Yeah.
road names and stuff. So he says, "Yeah, I've left a woman. I strangled her and then I dumped her body near an underpass, and it's in this area." And she basically narrows it down, and she goes out she goes out in the middle of the night like looking for this place, but she takes like her self-defense trainer with her, and he's like the most
Oh, wow.
fucking ripped guy you have ever seen in your life. And he's like looks about fucking 6'5", and he's like with her.
Yeah, that's who you want with you,
Yeah.
protecting you.
Yeah, so she goes out with him, and she thinks she finds where it is, and then she scans all the newspapers from that time. And she said, "How did the body get discovered?" And he said, "Oh, it was a cyclist." In the paper, it said a cyclist saw the body. So she was like, "Right, I'm going to look at all the papers." And she found the newspaper article that said the cyclist found the body,
Wow.
and then she got the police records, and then she looked at missing persons records, and she matched it up to a lady called, I think she was called Alice Duvall, and they had to basically do DNA and stuff. It wasn't 100% confirmed, but she was like, it basically is her. So she identified one of his old victims. It's
Wow.
so
All
cool.
it takes is a little bit of work.
Yeah, and the family were like, the police could have done this. And she was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but they couldn't be bothered because it was a Jane Doe sex worker. And they were just like, oh, well, never gonna find her. So moving on to like the next murder.
Yeah.
Speaking of next murders.
Again, so frustrating. LA police.
They're busy.
They're busy, and I'm hesitant to criticize them too much because, yeah, one, they're busy, but two, well, like, what if something happens to me someday and I need
and they dig this
the police's
podcast out
help
and go, right, fuck you.
in my city. But it's just really frustrating because there is a lot of corruptness and a lot of...
They haven't got a good rep.
Even now, there still is. They don't have a good rep, and you want to be able to trust the police, but we won't go down that road.
I want to ask you a question. Okay, so I was in an Uber back from the train station when I got back from San Diego, and we were talking about the different areas of LA and da-da-da. And the driver told me that apparently there's a cap on how much you can steal before you get arrested. So he was saying it's something like $900 or something. He was like, so if you go into a store and steal a TV that's worth like $700, the police won't even come out because they're too busy.
I would believe that. I never heard that, but I completely believe it. I don't even think that's an LA thing because I've lived in other places and I just think something like that where you've been like pickpocketed or somebody took something from your house. I don't think the police are like, "Oh yeah, we're going to hunt them down and find them." I just
Yeah.
that's the last cuz nobody's hurt.
Insurance.
The thing that's been stolen, you have insurance. The thing that's been stolen is like not it doesn't affect anyone
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Like that's it. So I believe that Uber driver, but I also think that that's in most cities, not just LA.
Yeah. Maybe the limit varies.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wasn't a bullshitter.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about the Manson murders because we totally should have gone while you were here because
I
it's literally
know.
walking distance.
What?
It's
Don't
walking
tell me
distance,
that.
Talissa. Yeah,
Are you
I
telling
know.
me that? Oh my
I'm
God.
I'm sorry. I didn't even realize, but the La Bianca residence
No.
in LA is right down the street
Oh my
from where I
God.
live.
I mean, so many things happen in LA that you can literally be like, this happened there, this happened there. Like wherever you walk, you know? In a way.
I know when I started doing this, and even when you came here, I was kind of planning in my head like, oh, we could go to these different spots, but there's so many in my area. Like I was looking at the Manson murders. There's the La Bianca residence.
I was thinking about, I wanted to go to the Chateau Marmont, but that's quite far, isn't it?
It's just in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood. So
yeah.
And I feel like your memory with these stories, like how you've just talked about Sam Little, like I don't have that kind of memory about murders like this. I need to have something prepared.
Rachel, my memory is dog shit unless it's about something useless. Like I don't know where my fucking keys
about
are.
Murder and crime.
Yeah, like I remember actually somebody said to me like, "Oh, tell me about that," and I told them. They were like, "That was like you were reading it off a bit of paper," and I was like, "It's all taking up room."
That's what that just felt like.
It's taking up room that could be used with something fucking useful. Like, so La Bianca, didn't they kill one member of the family, or did they kill multiple members of the La Bianca family?
Okay, so the first night, or generally, they killed
it was a
Sharon
younger
Tate.
She was first. Okay.
So that was the night before, on August 9th, 1969, which I think the most recent movie that you could kind of reference was the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino movie, but that he completely changes the ending of that. Sorry to spoil it.
Oh, you should have watched it by now if it's like, it's been out a while.
Right, but he does that with Inglourious Bastards as well.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
It's Manson sent his like cult followers to go murder Sharon Tate, who was pregnant. She was 8.5 months pregnant, and then she was with Abigail Folger and a couple of other guys, and they were all murdered in this nice house in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Which I was going to talk about another murder that happened in Beverly Hills that's very famous, but I don't know if we have much time.
Was it
but
OJ?
Then OJ wasn't murdered, but
yes. Allegedly, OJ murdered people.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, the next night, August 10th, 1969, they went to this La Bianca residence, the house right down the street from me that we could have walked to.
Is it fancy?
And no, but I looked it up. It's about 1.9 million if you want to buy it.
Jeez.
Maybe a little bit more. Now, that was back in 2019. It was up for sale.
And house prices have rocketed.
It's got a pool. It's like, yeah, it's a nice house. It has a pool.
Wow.
Totally could have gone to see it back then too, which to go buy it.
We could have pretended we were awesome buying if we did that. Oh, yeah. Me and my lovely wife Rachel are here to inspect the facilities. We've got to have a pool. We must have a pool.
We have to have a pool. So what's the history of this house? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
I'm going to offer over, but I don't want to buy anywhere where someone's been murdered. Please tell me no one's been murdered here.
Oh, really? Oh, darn it, honey. I guess we should go somewhere else.
We are out of here. Let's go to Selling Sunset offices.
But yeah, the LaBiancas, it was Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary. He was a grocer. This
It's
area
random, isn't
back
it?
then
Like,
wasn't, it was random, yes. And this area back in LA in the 60s, it wasn't like Beverly Hills. This is where people who were just working class, that's where they lived.
yeah.
It's definitely been gentrified to the max now, but back then it was just regular people, working class people, and this was a couple and they were grocers and they were murdered by more Manson people. So that was something that happened very close to me. Maybe I'll walk by and be creepy and take a picture,
Yeah.
although I don't know how easy that is, or I wonder
Maybe
if people
they've
do
put
that
up
all the
loads of
time. I don't know.
hedges. I mean, because if you live there now, you will get loads of passers-by, right? You're going to get loads of people trying to.
Yeah, and it's really sad because there used to be this long-standing business in LA where they did murder tours.
Mhm.
Murder tours. Why couldn't I
Yeah.
say that? And they would take people past places like this and they would tell the story, but they don't do that anymore. They
Why?
don't do that.
What do they think it's in?
They closed the business during the
Oh,
pandemic.
what do they think is in poor taste?
Yeah, it's really sad. But I was gonna say that there was another house down the street where the Manson cult members then went to next
Oh
a
my
couple
God.
hours later and killed more people.
I didn't know
This was
that.
all in Los Feliz. Yeah, Susan Struthers.
Oh.
She had an apartment and they went to her house a couple hours later and murdered her as well.
Oh my God.
So I always wonder what the connection was there. I wonder if she knew a cult member or
Yeah, it's so random.
Maybe we'll do a deep dive into the Manson murders
Yeah.
on a future episode. Not maybe, I think we should.
Yeah, I think we should.
Because that's just something that we talk about him sometimes. And
Well, he's just like one of the most famous murderers in the world, isn't he? And
And he didn't even murder. He just sent people
Yeah.
to murder for him. He was so good at manipulating people that he sent people out to
It's
murder
insane.
an 8 months pregnant woman. Like,
I know.
how manipulated and messed up do you have to be to do something like that?
I sort of blame it on the constant acid and fucking. That can't have helped.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just
Yes.
on drugs all the fucking time and the stuff that you hear, you'll be like, oh, this was, I don't know. I mean, on a hangover, I think I'm so like, somebody could convince me to give them money just to make them fuck off. Like, so they get you while you're down.
Just leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And they were all like younger people. It was also the 60s where there was a lot going on in 1968 that really changed people. It's very similar to now. I was listening to a podcast about how back in the 60s, there were all these different kinds of cults happening because of what was happening in the world. And it's very similar to now, which there's a lot of shitty things happening right now, and there's cults popping up all over the place again. So we're just going through that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of see like the whole QAnon thing as a bit of a cult. I mean, it might not be like a cult.
It is.
I mean, do they separate you from your family? They take their money for sure.
Yeah, and they convince you that the people in your life are
who are
not
believers
as smart as you.
I mean, it's starting to tick all the boxes. They just don't have a place where you gather.
I think that's
it's
what's
online.
Different about our time is everything's online, and technically they are gathering there. You know, like
Trump they are in a digital space.
Starting his own Trump is starting his own Facebook.
Oh my fucking life! What
it's like. Where is
what a cesspool that's going to be.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's happening again because there's so many crappy things that are happening right now with school shootings and police mistreating people, and that's putting it very lightly.
Yeah.
And just politically, things that are happening, it's very similar to what was going on in the 60s. So
These things come around in cycles, right?
yeah, exactly.
Crazy. Okay, well, should we stop there because you've got to go and get a massage for your old neck? And
I do. I'm going to go get a massage, and I really liked talking about LA crimes. I think we should maybe we'll do a part 2 next week because
yeah,
we didn't really have that much time today.
and we'll
And
look into your different
it's been fun.
ones and Charlie Manson maybe a bit more.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
thanks for listening.
Yeah, we didn't plan this. Okay. Yeah, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Transatlantic Crime this week. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at TransatCrimePod, Instagram at Transatlantic Crime, and on Facebook with Transatlantic Crime Podcast.
Thanks, bye.